Yes.
I'd like to call to order the regular formal meeting of the Iowa City City Council for December the 18th, 2018. Roll call, please.
Cole.
Here.
Mims. Here. Sully.
Here.
Taylor. Here. Teague.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Throgmorton.
Here. I'd like to welcome all of you to your City Hall. I hope you've enjoyed this beautiful spring day. Well, you know, not really, but it is December the 18th after all, so beautiful day. Sun's been really bright, air's been real clear. It's really been pretty extraordinary. Anyhow, it's great to see all of you, especially everybody from Lucas and Twain Elementary. Yeah, how many are from Lucas or Twain Elementary? Yeah. Look at that. All right. Very good. Which brings us to item 2, Student Leadership Awards for Lucas and Twain Elementary. So we're going to begin with the 2 kids from Twain Elementary, Ivana Simpson and Lily Waite. I wonder if you 2 could come up and I'll meet you in front of this podium. Pauline, I'm going to ask you to hand me those.
Right up here.
Okay, just stand still. Now, could you move over there? Perfect. Right like that. Okay. So, boy, I met both of you out front, and I've already forgotten your names. Who's who?
I'm Lily.
Lily. Okay, so let's see who's first here. All right. Your Student Leadership Award is right here. So before we celebrate these 2 awards, I want to say I had the pleasure of watching a great video about Twain Elementary just a few days ago. It shows your terrific principal, I guess, some guy who's moving from classroom to classroom and introducing the camera person to all these kids in the classes. It was great to watch and made Twain seem like such a terrific place, a terrific school to attend. So I'm betting some of you have seen that video, and I know some of you kids were in the video. Is that right? Were you there? No? No? Okay. Well, it was a terrific video. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you, Lily, to read your speech first, and then I'm going to ask you to read your speech, and then I'll read your Student Leadership Award, and they'll be the same thing for both of you, just using different names, okay? All right. So you're first, Lily.
Thank you so much for giving me an award. I feel honored. The reason why I think I'm able to speak here is because I care a lot about my school. Whenever there's something I can do for teachers or classmates, I try to help. For example, when my school said that we could go to the homeless shelter to serve them food, I signed up as fast as I could. I wanted to help my school and community as much as possible. My teachers nominated me because I have stood up for people when they needed support. I've written a letter to President Trump telling him why I respectfully disagree with his treatment of undocumented immigrants, and I have stood up for the LGBTQ plus society. When I'm older, I have plans to do more than I can right now.
All right. Well done, Lily. Okay, so now we'll turn to Ivana Simpson. So, Oh, I'm sorry, Iana Simpson, excuse me. Would you please read your speech too?
First off, I want to thank the City Council for their award. I really appreciate it. But mostly, I want to thank the Mark Twain staff. They helped me achieve things that I thought I couldn't achieve. They helped me with their growth mindset. I was given this award because I helped other kids make sure our class is on point, and I'm a great role model to other people. I enjoy helping out and hope to volunteer and keep our community as I grow up. Thank you so much for the award.
Beautifully done. All right, so let me read the award statements, and what I'm going to read is identical for both of you, but I'll just, insert your own name, right? So, Student Leadership Award for your outstanding qualities of leadership within Twain Elementary as well as the community, and for your sense of responsibility and helpfulness to others, we recognize Iana Simpson and Lily Waite, as an outstanding student leader. Your community is proud of you. Presented by the Iowa City City Council, December 2018. So, Iana, here's yours.
Thank you.
Lily, yours.
Thank you.
So help me celebrate these 2 great students. Woo! All right. That was pretty fun, huh? All right, we need to have 3 students from Lucas Elementary. Asia Garrett. And I don't know who that was. And Kira James and Aiden Thomas. All right. Well, you know the gig because we just did it. All right. So tell me your name again, please.
Asia Garrett.
Asia Garrett. Okay, Asia, would you please read your statement, your speech?
Hello, my name is Asia Garrett. Thank you for choosing me for this award. I'm honored that you saw the qualities in me that are responsible, caring, and hardworking. I feel like my attitude has changed a lot since coming to Lucas, and I'm so glad that others can see it too. One example of me being a good citizen is when others need help, I will try to help them the best I can. Another example is when I'm in a group and they're off task. I'll try to help them get back on task. I'm also on the Lucas Student Council. Thank you again for nominating me for this award.
All right. Beautifully done, Asia. Okay, and Carrie, you're next. Do you have your speech handy? I know you do. So here you go.
Hi, my name is Kira James. I am a 6th grader at Lucas Elementary. The reasons I think I was chosen for this award are because I am helpful and always do my best. I also try when other people stop. I keep going. I'm not afraid to ask for help. I also participate in many activities outside of the school day. These include Student Council, Orff Club, band, a triathlon team, Little Hawks Volleyball Club, and a youth group. I am thankful to receive this award.
All right. All right, and our last honoree is Aiden Thomas. I got to tell you, I like your outfit there. I really wish I had a bright red tie because I've got a couple shirts that red tie would look good on. Okay, so you're next. Let me scoot. Aiden. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyway, hello, my name is Aiden Thomas. Now, first, I would like to thank my school for nominating me for this award, and I want to thank my family for supporting me with school. I also want to thank the orchestra and band teachers, and don't forget my friends for helping me on this journey of mine, too. Being a good leader is important to me. I help my classmates with math and other schoolwork, and I try to help them make good decisions so they don't get in trouble. I manage my time with outside activities. I am responsible for my schoolwork. I try to be kind and considerate to others in my community and always be a good citizen. Thank you again for this award, Mr. Mayor.
Brilliantly done. And the council. Okay, so I'm going to read your awards too. And again, they're identical, just names different. So, Student Leadership Award for your outstanding qualities of leadership within Lucas Elementary, as well as the community, and for your sense of responsibility and helpfulness to others, we recognize, fill in your name, as an outstanding student leader. Your community is proud of you. Presented by the Iowa City City Council, December 2018. So, here's yours, Aiden.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And here's yours, Asia.
Thank you.
And here's yours, Kira. Thank you. So let's celebrate these three terrific students. Let's all do it. So I know there are proud parents out there. Parents, hands. All right. Well done. You're doing a great job. Okay, we're going to move on to items 3 through 8, which is the consent calendar. Could I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Sally, seconded by Thomas. Discussion?
Was it amended?
Well, these things, late handout stuff.
Oh, okay.
Just, yeah.
Okay.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims? Yes. Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes. Item 9, community comment. This is a time for anybody who wants to discuss any item that is not listed on the formal meeting agenda. It's time to come up, take not more than 5 minutes to say whatever's on your mind. Please remember to state your name first and then take not more than 5 minutes. So Paul, I guess you're first.
I messed that up, sorry. My name is Paul Greeno. I'm a retired professor in the university. I live south of Iowa City on Oakcrest Hill Road, which is not in the city limits, but it's in the city buffer zone. And I want to draw your attention to what I think is potentially a serious issue for not just for those of us who live in the surrounding areas, but for Iowa City proper itself. 10 years ago, a neighbor directly across the street from us, half a mile away, put in a factory farm, a 2,500 unit animal confinement, hog confinement, and as a consequence, our experience has been of frequent and repeated annoyances of a nauseating smell that drifts across our property and our neighbors. And as a consequence, we organized ourselves along Oakcrest Hill Road into a group to protest to this person. His name is Randy Lackender, and we attempted to negotiate with him that he would take all mitigating steps to try to prevent this odor from annoying us. This negotiation didn't work out well. He was not cooperative. He was not neighborly. Lawyers got involved, and it was a standoff. 10 years went by, and then this last summer, 2018, he put in another one of these units, doubling the size of the confinement, the CAFO offense, which troubles us very much. So we have entered into another period of struggle with Randy Lackender, and our neighborhood group has joined with the 100 Grannies, which I think is an organization you probably know about, which is a civic group. I have a colleague
Right here.
a colleague here who will be addressing that to you as soon as I am finished. The spreading of manure on fields, it's collected, the manure and the urine from these confined animals is concentrated into a pit under the factory unit and then spread out over the fields in a constant and nauseating activity. We saw it as an annoyance first, but when I began to look in it more carefully, I found that there are serious threats to health and property values and to water and air quality, all of which constitute a threat. The reason I say this is a threat is that the number of these animal confinements increases every year in Johnson County. 2 or 3 more units are added. Currently, there are between 40 and 50 units. It's a little uncertain the exact number. The state DNR keeps track of it, but their maps are not entirely current. What this means is that moving from a south and westerly direction, these CAFO units are slowly surrounding Johnson County and surrounding Iowa City, and they're moving into the buffer area over which the City Council does have a degree of interest and even formal understanding with the county. It is a county issue, I understand that, and we have approached and are in a reckoning relationship with the Board of Supervisors, but we want to draw your attention to this as a problem which is bad for the city. The quality of life is very much affected by the drifting of animal waste odor drifting across the landscape. However, it's not just an aesthetic matter, as I say. The aerosols involved have a potential for serious health effects. The contamination of the air with these fecal particulate matters includes, among a number of other hazards, so-called MRSA bacteria. These are MRSA bacteria are the bacteria strains of Staph aureus which can infect people, especially elderly people, children, and those who have compromised or limited immune response, and they are not susceptible to antibiotic treatment. In other words, there is an actual hazard, a danger. The extent of this is not entirely demonstrated by scientific studies, but we have in our own Department of Geography, a medical geographer here in the university, Margaret Carroll, who's done a careful study of admissions of veterans to the Veterans Administration Hospital, and Margaret has been able to show that veterans who live in close proximity to these CAFO factory farms have a 2 or 3 time higher load of MRSA bacteria, which therefore endangers them in case they are subject to infection or immune compromise. So we have potentially a serious health problem for the most vulnerable among us. The fact that Iowa City is now only 3 miles away from CAFO units and more being built every year is something I think we need to reckon. Water quality also is subject to pollution and distress, both surface water. The spreading of this manure on fields gets into water streams and surface water bodies, but it also, in many instances, can penetrate the water table and therefore get into the pumped water systems that goes into people's homes. Those of us who live on the periphery of Iowa City generally have our own wells, and we are pumping water out of the ground, which may be contaminated with MRSA bacteria and other pollutants which come from these factory farms. The fact is, factory farms are not sustainable. They're not environmentally sustainable. They make money for farmers. There are very, very large capital and financial interests involved in the pork industry in Iowa, which has strangled environmental regulations and taken it entirely out of the hands of cities and counties. It's concentrated in Des Moines in a fairly toothless Department of Natural Resources. The DNR has had its claws pulled back, and there's virtually no inspection in the state. So even if these CAFOs are not meeting their statutory responsibilities to meet environmental standards, inspections will never catch up with them. This is something which is increasingly closing in on Johnson County. There are other counties in Iowa which have hundreds of these CAFOs. As I say, farmers have an interest in this. It does put a stream of money into their pocket. Our group, and certainly the people on my street, are not anti-farm. We like farmers. We believe in farming, real farming, natural farming, family farming, organic farming. Of course, wonderful. That's in the heritage of Iowa. But to call animal confinements farming is a bit of a misnomer. It's an industrial process to produce units of meat, which are sold through very, very large corporations. The profits are accruing mostly outside of the state. So we're drawing your attention to this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, I'm Catherine Nicholson. I'm a member of the Activism Committee of 100 Grannies. There are so many urgent, direct and indirect environmental and health problems related to CAFOs, factory farms, that we don't have time here to delve into any of them in detail. We will leave a resource sheet with you for reference, or you may contact the Activism Committee of 100 Grannies, or ICAW. ICAW is an acronym for Clean Air and Water, Iowa Clean Air and Water, which is Paul's organization, for further information. We are also very willing to meet with you in closed session to discuss this serious issue. Here's a brief outline of many of the severe problems, and Paul Greenhour of ICAW has presented some others. The scale of the problem: there are already 24 million hogs in Iowa. We have a population of humans just over 3 million. That's 1 person for every 8 pigs. And the pork industry intends to triple the number of CAFOs in the state over the next few years, from 15,000 CAFOs to 45,000. Hogs produce 7 times more waste than humans. That is more manure than can possibly be accommodated. Our waterways are seriously compromised. In Iowa, the currently impaired waterways, the waterways classified as impaired, 750. Animal waste is a large factor, contributing E. coli, algae blooms, and fish kills. The health threats are mind-boggling, but because of increasing financial difficulties, many farmers are willing to make their land available for factory farming. Most often, the animals are owned by an outside corporation. There are currently 46 CAFOs in Johnson County, mostly in the more remote rural areas. Our immediate concern is the relentless CAFO encroachment from the south and west into Johnson County. 2 to 4 new CAFOs are being added every year. The useless master matrix. This is an old 2004 legal guideline of regulation that the DNR uses for establishing approval for construction of a new CAFO. It is complex and obsolete. Only a 50% score is required to secure a permit from among the requirements, a failing grade in any other context. It is not protecting our waterways, our communities, or neighbors of CAFOs. Regulatory problems. While most CAFOs are legal in the sense that producers meet existing, albeit inadequate, DNR code requirements, these requirements have been tailored to suit the pork industry by the Farm Bureau in Des Moines. The CAFOs are protected by pork lobbyists. Local control has been snatched away from cities, counties, and people living nearby suffering the consequences. Additionally, the EPA under the current administration is trying to exempt CAFOs from having to report their toxic air emissions, pointing to the possibility of increased health hazards. This is not anti-pharma. We favor responsible family farming and suppliers to the farmers' markets. But CAFOs are heavily capitalized industrial operations that are inherently cruel to animals, polluting to the environment, and inconsistent with Iowa's agricultural family farm traditions. CAFOs significantly reduce the value of people's homes. A Colorado State University study found that the values of Iowa residences near CAFOs were reduced by as much as 40%. What we want from Iowa City Council is this. Number one, continue to familiarize yourself with the issues. Number two, the city should join the County Board of Supervisors in demanding a moratorium on further CAFO construction in the county. Number three, examine the city's buffer zone to see whether more stringent prohibition is possible. Number four, ally yourself with other cities in Iowa that are struggling with this egregious CAFO problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Good evening, Brandon.
Good evening. That's a really important issue. I hope people think about that. I'm just here because I go to the rec center. I know that all the counselors go to the rec center, working out in there, getting in shape as you do. But maybe you've noticed something new that's in the rec centers. I noticed something new, which disturbed me and confused me, and that is they have 2 new signs which are on either door entranceway, which says no loitering. And you know, in my mind, I mean, a public space, a public place should not have a no loitering sign. Parks don't have no loitering signs. When I was a kid and I went to the Y, we didn't have any no loitering signs. And what does loitering mean? You know, I'm thinking, what does it really mean? Is it standing outside, breathing, doing something like that? How long do you have to be there in order to be, quote, loitering? What kind of message is this sign sending to people who are going in to recreate, go to the gym, go to the workout, go to play games? What message are we sending? And what is loitering all about? It's a law, apparently, that can be applied decide a person can be arrested for loitering. It gives the police full reign to decide who to pick up and who not to pick up. It's kind of an arbitrary thing. If you've read Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, we have a history of loitering laws in this country. I think most poignant is what we had in the Jim Crow South, which was after slavery was eliminated. The Southerners, they put these loitering signs in so they could pick up anybody they wanted. In fact, so they pick up minorities and they stick them in jail, and then they take them out and they put them on the work farm to do slave labor. Without slavery, it's the same thing. Now, I think the signs are, I don't think that anybody on the council will be picked up for loitering. Now, that might be cynical. Perhaps, who are they thinking about? Someone standing around there? Maybe there's so many of those hogs out there, 8 to 1. Maybe there's a few large animals that can't move out of the way. But what is it really that they're saying about this loitering and standing around and breathing air? And I think it's profiling. And I know that sounds ugly, but I think it is. And you think, well, what's this just little sign? That's all. It's just a little, no loitering. That's all. Just a little sign. It's only about 15 inches by 15 inches, a black background with white lettering on either door. So the first thing you see is no loitering, right? So what is this? What could this really actually mean? But, we know that things take place in increments, in little steps. If I look at the rec center, first they turn the recreation room into a fitness room. Then they took out the chairs and tables next to the snack machines in front of the television. People would sit around and talk, and some homeless people would talk there. And I was told by somebody who worked there that the person who was in charge didn't want the homeless people, so they got rid of the chairs. And then people come in and play basketball. And, young men come in and play basketball. And they have, they had 2, 3, 4 courts. One was full court going the long way. Well, they tore out the long way baskets. Now, who is really taking advantage of the full court baskets? Well, they're generally young men. And the majority, actually, in this recreation space, young men of color. Now, why is that? Because the rest is pay for, like if you have to pay, and the people of color, Latinos, black people, this is a free space. Not excluding white people, too. I play there. I brought my daughter up playing there. My daughter played basketball in that gymnasium. That's where people who are working class, it's just, they can't own a gymnasium. They can't belong to a Dodge Club Fitness Center. They can't do that, So they tore those baskets out. And now you have the no loitering signs. Cynically, these signs are up right next to the Chauncey Swan Tower, which will be filled with a lot of nice, rich, wealthy people. What are we actually saying here? I think that the no loitering sign is arbitrary and it's profiling, and that in Iowa City, you should not have any no loitering signs on any space. And maybe you should have a sign that says, safe place, come in. Maybe you should have a sign at worst that says, please do not obstruct the doorway, with a smiley face, like don't obstruct the doorway. Maybe handicapped people might be coming in, okay? But if it's a public space, you should not criminalize it. Mr. Mayor and City Council people, I kindly and pointedly ask you, take off those signs.
Thanks, Brandon. Anyone else? Hi, Thomas. Oh. Hi, Chrissy.
Good evening. My name is Chrissy Canganelli. I'm Executive Director of Shelter House and a resident of Iowa City, a community in which I've raised my family, a community I've called home for nearly 35 years. There's been a fair amount of media coverage and local debate during the past few weeks on the subject of the installation of new benches on the Ped Mall and the concern that the design prevents people from lying in a prone position, which some have said will have a negative impact on people experiencing homelessness in our community. City staff and council members have been the object of substantial criticism. I've been hesitant to comment for a couple of reasons. The current narrative is entirely driven by criticism and negative speculations. There seems to be no interest or room for discussions focused on solutions to the real issue at hand, the real crisis, homelessness. As a result, we're not engaging as a community at the level in which we have demonstrated both capacity and desire. I'm here this evening to appeal to our better angels to please stop this negative spiral. The time, energy, and resources being spent on defending the right of those experiencing homelessness to sleep on benches is better directed to the hard and important work of ending homelessness and defending the right for all people to be housed. In reframing the conversation through this lens, I'd like to take just a moment to summarize some of the actual work, the hard work that has happened, and the progress made working with the city, in which the city has taken initiative and demonstrated leadership in addressing homelessness in our community by increasing our capacity to respond to the emergent need and crisis of homelessness through emergency shelter and through investment in creating a permanent solution, building our community's capacity to provide permanent supportive housing, an intervention proven to end homelessness for the hardest to house, the chronically homeless, an intervention proven to save both lives and money. During the spring of 2014, it was city staff and the Iowa City Police Department who initiated conversations with the local homeless coordinating board to explore the feasibility of a low-barrier winter shelter. These conversations resulted in the implementation of the low-barrier winter emergency shelter, which has opened each winter since January of 2015. Anywhere from 150 to 175 people have been served each winter, people who would have otherwise have had nowhere but the streets to turn. As a result, vagrancy calls to the police are down precipitously, emergency room and ambulance services are down, and there has been no loss of life during the winter months due to exposure for individuals experiencing homelessness in our community. Less visible is the fact that each winter the city issues a temporary use permit and allows Shelter House to increase its capacity throughout the winter months at the Southgate Avenue facility, adding an additional 20 to 30 shelter beds to our existing 70. Through these efforts combined, anyone seeking shelter in our community during the winter months is assured a warm, safe place to sleep. With respect to the longer-term and more permanent solution, during the spring of 2016, city staff initiated conversations with local homeless service providers to better understand the challenges and barriers to developing permanent housing, permanent supportive housing, for our community's hardest to house, the chronically homeless. As a result of these discussions, a new housing type was recommended for amendment to the zoning code. And with the unanimous approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council, the zoning code was amended in July of 2016. For Shelter House, this meant that land that was purchased, sold to us by a private developer in October of 2016, would be developed as a matter of legal right, as the use conformed to the amended code. And furthermore, we were able to maximize the residential capacity of the housing we intended to develop. Next month, Cross Park Place will open. 24 one-bedroom apartments will be made available for the chronically homeless of our community. These are permanent homes for people. Further demonstrating the city's commitment to ending homelessness is the fact that this fall, the Iowa City Public Housing Authority, with the council's unanimous approval, dedicated housing choice vouchers to Cross Park Place. I know of no other community in our state that has dedicated resources in this way. And finally, the city has, simply put, radically increased its financial investment in affordable housing. For all these efforts, the City of Iowa City was recognized this past fall by the Iowa Finance Authority as a leader in our state for the creation and implementation of an affordable housing action plan and for their leadership in advancing affordable housing development with an innovation award. Homelessness is a complex issue. About that, there is no debate. But what I find so heartening and motivating is that we, in this community, through partnerships across both the public and private sectors, are demonstrating ever-increasing political will to address the challenge head-on by realigning resources through systems change and making a paradigm shift. Our work today is establishing the roadmap and foundation for ending chronic homelessness in our community. This is the real conversation. This is the hard work, and this is where the real impact is. It is in recognition of your leadership and partnership that I am here tonight, and with the hope of reframing this conversation as we move forward in the year to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. Thank you. Hi, Thomas.
Hey. Evening, everybody. My name is Thomas Agron. I'm a Northside resident. I teach art at the university, and I also manage public art projects for the Iowa City Downtown District. I'm here tonight to talk to you because I can't be here for your January budget talks, and so I'm using this opportunity to speak to you, as well as the community at large about funding for public art in Iowa City. I have a lot I want to say, and I'm going to go really fast, so just bear with me. I outlined during the October 16th City Council meeting that we had seen an 87% drop in per capita spending on art in Iowa City over the last 20 years, as well. The state's Percent for Art program was recently cut, and indeed Iowa City ranks 41st per capita spending on art, which is significantly lower than all of our neighbors. This was not, of course, always the norm, and even in the 1934 Comprehensive Plan for Iowa City, which was the same year that the federal government adopted a Percent for Art policy, Iowa City is described as a community known and promoted for its arts and culture. We can be a leader and model again in this arena, but it'll take a paradigm shift in how we think about public art and artists and how our city supports them, and that's what I want to talk about tonight. I work managing public art projects downtown, and the requirement to spend my budget in a very narrow geographic area has made me think a lot about where and how arts investments are made in our community. If you make a heat map of spending on public art and cultural events, as well as the distribution of PAAC grants, PAC grants, you'll see that the dollars are tightly concentrated downtown. So don't get me wrong, public art is a core contributor to the vitality of downtown, but there's a reason that I think at the municipal level, public art is housed under neighborhood services. All members of our community should live in neighborhoods enriched with art, and we should be thinking of public art as a decentralized and powerful infrastructure investment rather than a soft benefit. A couple weeks ago or last week during Think Iowa City's annual meeting, the CVB outlined the dramatic increase in hotel capacity and the distinct lack of growth and demand to fill those empty rooms. Iowa City needs to think outside of the normal ways that we use the hotel motel taxes to help make Iowa City a distinctive place that people want to live and visit, and a memorable one that they will share and want to come back to. So as you vet the upcoming budget, I urge you an overdue reallocation of the FY19 hotel motel tax. Iowa law requires that 50%, though only 50%, of funds be used to promote tourism. And currently, it's divided amongst the CVB, the police, and the Parks Department, who use the money, Julie told me, for ball fields. I suggest that we think about why people might want to come to Iowa City more broadly than ball fields and badges. And we sell our city as a hub for arts and culture, so the hotel motel tax revenue, I believe, should reflect and support those values. An idea that I wish I could claim as my own, but on the contrary, it's the verbatim recommendation from your 2013 comp plan, which instructs the city to, quote, explore new funding resources for arts and culture projects and programs such as hotel motel tax revenue or a Percent for Art ordinance. And I want to talk about that hotel motel tax tonight, and I will keep on going here. Really quickly, those numbers, FY18 is about $1 million. That's divided roughly 50% to the police and 25 more or less to Parks and Rec and the CVB. I'm suggesting tweaking those numbers to give 13.5% to public art program, and I'll give you more information about those numbers. But the way that this basically impacts the FY19 budget is that for public safety, it would be 0.25% reduction in the overall public safety budget. For Parks and Recreation, it would mean a 1.1% drop in revenue. For the public art budget, it would be a 565% increase in revenue. That 13.5% and that 565% increase is not an arbitrary number, and it's calibrated to basically fully restore the 1999 public art budget as adjusted for inflation. And I think it also corrects for uneven spending across the city districts, which is something that I talked with you guys about last time. The Public Art Advisory Commission is submitting a jointly authored memo that outlines the nuts and bolts of that, as well as a bunch of recommended contingencies of that funding. We all know that public art is more than simply a tourist attraction for Iowa City. St. Paul is one of the country's best and most thoroughly thought out public art programs, and so I'm going to borrow from them here, which is, and it's a long quote, "Citizens see public art as promoting the city and individual neighborhoods as desirable places to live, work, and visit, improving the attractiveness and pedestrian friendliness of city streetscapes. Planning studies articulate the potential of public art for expressing neighborhood history, identity, sense of place, and for fostering intercultural harmony and understanding in our increasingly diverse city," which describes our own as well. They embrace public art as a partner in promoting the vitality of commercial nodes. Along with that restoration of the budget, I really think that we need to re-envision its civic purpose. Public art is not just a bronze statue of Irving Weber or a piece of plop art in front of a student housing megaplex. I think that the best public art can magnify or even catalyze the success of other civic work. It should be nimble and tactical and happening all over our city. Public art can re-envision the public engagement process, as we saw up in St. Paul. It can connect us as neighbors and give us voice to everyone in our city, particularly those areas of our city that are underserved and under-resourced. Public art should be valued not simply as a soft benefit, again, but a strategic tool of neighborhood investment, invigoration, revitalization, and empowerment. Iowa City should look to St. Paul, which sees its substantial public art funding as, quote, "a powerful tool that places artists at the core of civic action in shaping the form and experience of the city." I recommend using this funding primarily to vastly increase the grant programs to the neighborhoods. Discussing public art in neighborhoods, Grayson Johnson, who's a contributor to Strong Towns, writes, quote, "The haphazard and makeshift nature of a project marks it as truly local. The more makeshift it is, the less intimidating it becomes to mimic or interact with the art. When it's clear that art has come from the people, it puts the onus on the people to create more. It becomes a call and response kind of interaction that fills a place with a human touch. In the top-down case, the public become consumers of art projects that formal groups are then expected to deliver. The city that she loves did not come prepackaged or designed by government policy, but was built slowly by good neighbors going a little bit above and beyond. The most successful public art is the result of community desires and goals, not top-down planning." That's the end of her quote.
Thomas, you've pretty much gone way beyond 5 minutes.
Can I just have like 1 minute?
Go ahead.
Okay. The municipalities love to talk about creative placemaking, but expect it to come out of thin air. And sure, sometimes it can, but I believe in a city's obligation to serve a catalytic effect in progress. I have no personal interest in what a glorified hood ornament, $500,000 buys for the Ped Mall, but I have a lot of interest in what $52,000 grants spread all across our city every single year would do. I'm almost done. The council's adoption of this approach to funding will borrow from the accounts for Parks and Rec and Public Safety, but I see it as a new strategy to achieve some of the same goals of those departments and many others at the city. I'd urge you to look at how the renovation of the Englert drove the revitalization of downtown, how an artistic bus stop can encourage public transit and walking, or how an after-school art program contributes to a reduction in crime, or a few homemade benches can transform a residential right-of-way into a pocket park, or a well-placed mural can change the entire perception of a community. It's possible for the city to soften these budget impacts through the general fund, but I also believe that the growth in hotel-motel tax revenue over time will restore those numbers, and the CVB agrees we cannot expect growth to come from the same playbook that we've been running. So, as you recover from your holiday meals, I hope you enter your New Year FY19 budget talks with a resolution, both figuratively and literally, to act in a meaningful way on the 2013 comp plan. I think it's time to usher in a new era of public art in Iowa City, where we see its job description change from urban embellishment to powerful civic tool. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Steve Miller, and I'm a Longfellow neighborhood resident, an architect in town, and a member of the Public Art Advisory Committee. And also a subcommittee of the Public Art Advisory Committee that was formed specifically to look at funding. And so we worked collaboratively with Thomas to develop a memo that I can pass off to you after this. And Thomas can borrow 4 of my 5 minutes here. I just want to say that I was inspired by Thomas's statement at the October 16th City Council meeting and by your receptive reaction to that. And Iowa City's public art has made an impact on my life and my family's decision to move here. From watching my kids play in the weather dance fountain to seeing my wife hug the tree sweaters and just sitting on the eclectic and beautifully painted benches on the Ped Mall, all of these experiences make our community memorable and contributed to our decision to move to Iowa City. I know that I'm not unique in this. I know multiple people have quoted or cited the poetry in the sidewalk as a contributing factor in making them choose Iowa City. Joining the Public Art Advisory Committee has been an enlightening experience. While I'm impressed with how much is done with such a limited budget, I'm disappointed that we don't have funds to buy new art or even maintain the art that we do have. But I am excited about the goals and strategies identified in the Iowa City Comprehensive Plan, and I look forward to working with city staff, our committee, and council members to develop a strategic plan for art in Iowa City that outlines ways we can increase visibility and awareness of the arts and culture programs that will attract visitors to Iowa City. Restoring the public art funding to the original levels will allow us to follow through on the goals stated in the comprehensive plan and continue to create a beautiful and memorable city. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And by the way, thank you for serving on the Public Arts Advisory Committee. Anyone else? Uh-oh, it's a fight.
Sorry. My name is Dottie Pearson, and I have been a volunteer at Shelter House since 2001, and I am here to applaud and express my gratitude to this community for its growing understanding of homelessness and its support to resolve the issues that contribute to homelessness. I have witnessed all the changes that have occurred from the Gilbert Street facility to the move to Southgate Street. I have seen the development of the lodge system and now Cross Park Place. Also, my husband and I have volunteered first in the the church-supported overflow project when it was started, when we were still on Gilbert Street, when Shelter House was still on Gilbert Street. And then we have worked in the winter shelter. We worked there in 2016, 17, and 18. And I have witnessed the good that the police and the EMS have done in helping the Shelter House staff and volunteers when individuals have come to the winter shelter. Many of them have needed assistance and needed hospital care, and they have been wonderful. So as you discuss with other constituents the issues with the benches on the Ped Mall, I hope that you will remind people in this community of all the good that they have accomplished to help Shelter House and people who find themselves homeless in this community. And I hope that you will join me in expressing your gratitude and showing your appreciation for their support of your work and the work of the police and the work of the EMS and the work of the Shelter House staff and the other nonprofits in this community who work with them on these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dottie. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Vero Rose Smith, and I'm also a member of the Public Art Advisory Committee, as well as a member of the funding subcommittee that Steve's on. And we consulted with Thomas on his proposal. I'm here in support of his proposal. I think the strategies and goals outlined both in this proposal and in the Iowa City Strategic Plan align well with a more comprehensive, collaborative, and better funded approach to public art. We are really fortunate in Iowa City to have so many incredible arts organizations like Film Scene, and the Englert and Hansher and Public Space One, Artifactory, and the Stanley Museum of Art. And all of our efforts as organizations and individuals who participate in the arts here in Iowa City will only be enhanced by restoring public art funding to the levels it was at before. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Vera Rose. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one else, thank you all for sharing your views about those important topics.
Jim,
Let's,
accept the correspondence.
could I have a motion to accept correspondence, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Saleh. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, Planning and Zoning Matters. Item 10A, Zoning Code Amendment related to transfer of development rights for historic properties. Good evening, everybody. This is an ordinance amending Title 14, Zoning Code of the Iowa City Code related to transfer of development rights for certain historic properties. The Planning and Zoning Commission is going to discuss the council's request for a consultation at its December 20th meeting. So staff recommends continuation of the public hearing and deferral of first consideration until January the 8th. I'll open the public hearing. I don't see anyone who would like to address this. So could I have a motion to consider the public hearing and defer first consideration to January the 8th?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Cole, seconded by Saleh. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please. No, it's a vote, sorry. Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Yeah, I don't know what you were saying, but I didn't hear it. Item 11, Building Change Incentive Program. This is a resolution approving an agreement between the City of Iowa City, Iowa, and Hills Bank and Trust Company, Midwest One Bank, and the University of Iowa Community Credit Union for the Building Change Loan Program. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
So
Second.
All right, moved by, who was it? I got distracted. Moved by Saleh, seconded by Thomas. All right, Wendy.
Good evening, Council. I'm Wendy Ford, Economic Development Coordinator. It has been about 3 years since the city had its last round of Building Change, which is a two-part program designed to focus resources on two of your strategic planning priorities, those being to ensure we have a vibrant, walkable core and that we have healthy neighborhoods in Iowa City. The program is an incentive program designed to inspire businesses and property owners in the Iowa City downtown district to invest in facade renovations, historic preservation, improvements to non-historic buildings, entryway modifications, accessibility improvements, elevators, and the like. Another goal of this would be to also inspire those property owners to invest in rehabbing underutilized second floor spaces for either additional office space, less expensive downtown office space, or residential units as well. The two parts of this program are a loan program and a grant program. And your agenda item today really only pertains to the loan program, and that is for a resolution memorializing an agreement with the funders of the loan part of the program. So I'll go over that a little bit, and then I'll explain the grant part too, for which you don't have any decisions tonight, but I wanted to put the whole thing in context for you. So our three of our local lending institutions, Hills Bank and Trust, Midwest One, and the University of Iowa Community Credit Union have come back together this year and said they would be willing to provide funds for a loan program if the city would administer it. So much as we did in FY13 through 15, we get applications for loan funds. We convene a committee of those lending institutions, people from those lending institutions, and city staff. City staff will then follow through on getting any of the additional information from loan applicants, including information about the project, or information about the security that they would have to bring in order to be able to get a loan. The terms for the loan program are somewhat similar, although the interest rate is a little bit higher than it was 3 or 4 years ago. The banks would each contribute up to $150,000 or $50,000 each for loans that would provide a 50% match for projects that cost a minimum of $10,000. The banks would be willing to loan up to $30,000 for any project. So those are the basics of the loan program. The city's role in that would be administrative. We would call the meetings with the loan committee. We would do all the administrative work, house and track the loan and the repayment from the recipient of the loan through our in-house software. And then once a year, we would repay the lending institutions the funding that is due them. So ours is an administrative role, and it's important to note, too, that the city would not be guaranteeing those loans, and we would not incur any additional costs or expenses for helping in the manner we do. There'd be no risk to us, with the exception of the time that staff spent in administering those loans. The grant program.
Can I ask a question on that before you go to this? You know, I really don't understand, like, the city, how the city administrated, like, what, is the loan gonna be paid by the people who have the loan, or
yes.
Why the city is doing that?
We wanted to be able to provide both a grant program and a loan program, and our local lending institutions, these banks, have been willing to be able to provide those funds so long as they didn't have to do the work of the administering of the loan. They would provide us with a low interest rate. We would do the work, working with the loan applicant, service the loan, and then make sure that the bank was paid back the money that the loan applicant had been repaying the city all year.
You mean you evaluate the people who are applying for the loan to see if they are qualified, and you send them to the bank, or what your role exactly? Because I feel like, you know, this loan is it being asked by the business, and the business, why the business not go to the bank direct and ask them for the loan, and they will be responsible for it? Like, why the city is coming in this?
The banks are offering a lower interest rate, and so it's a better deal for the loan applicant to come through the city in this program. It's an incentive program and a promotion, really, that is a partnership between the lending institutions and the city to
and
do
the
that.
city.
Right.
Like sort of like the city will be the guaranteed for the bank?
No, we're not guaranteeing at all. We're just helping the banks organize meetings to, like, pull the committee that decides whether or not a project is worthy of getting a loan. Some projects may not. The banks, that's where the bank's expertise will be. They'll be able to know whether or not, depending on the security or the collateral that a loan applicant would bring to the table, whether or not that was a good risk for them to take, because they are the ones taking the risk. If they decide that they do want to fund that particular project, then each of the 3 banks contribute equally 1/3 of the loan amount that would be going to that recipient. The city would, the banks would cut the check to the city would cut the check to the loan recipient would pay the city back on a monthly basis, and then once a year the city would pay the banks back.
That means as if the bank give the money to the city.
Pardon me?
As if the bank give the money to the city.
Exactly, yes.
Isn't that means?
The city's just acting as a pass-through?
It is still,
and then
the check from the bank has been written to the city.
Correct.
And the city is distributing the money to whoever qualify after you review their application and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that means the city is the one who taking the money from the bank? Like the
bank is handing us the money in 3 parts, enough to fund the one loan, each one contributing 1/3. Then the city will turn around and cut a check to the loan recipient. They'll then have enough money for their project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of.
And then they'll repay the city, and the city will repay the banks.
Okay.
Yeah, and these are funds that are made available at a lower interest rate than would normally be available, because the banks also have an interest in seeing downtown investment and north side investment as well.
It's really the collaboration of the banks that make this unique. You know, if you were an individual business owner and wanted to take advantage of these terms, it'd be pretty burdensome to go to 3 different banks and qualify and get that loan. So the banks are really partnering together on this program.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the logistics of working, in part, because of the logistics of working with 3 different lending institutions who are all taking 1/3 of the loan, it's easier for the money to come to the city and for us to be that pass-through.
And this is, you said, in total up to $150 a year?
No, it's $150,000, up to $150,000 total through June 30th of 2020.
Okay. I think this is really good because you're getting like low interest, rate, so the business can benefit out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, as you said, if they went direct to the bank, they would get the highest interest rate.
Higher interest rates, and they would have to ask one bank for more money, and that might be harder to achieve.
Yeah, I really, this is really sound good. Hopefully we can use it somewhere else. In another programs. That's, I just want to lay out that.
Okay, well, let me continue and tell you a little bit about the grant program, unless you had any more specifics with regards to how the whole loan program works.
Wendy, I just have a quick question.
Yep.
On your bullets on the loan program, the second from bottom bullet, is that supposed to be that the maximum project cost is $30,000? That was the way I read the memo. Was that the project costs were anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000?
Yes. I think that is a mistake. I think the minimum, and I don't have my other notes here.
The memo says the minimum
is
10 and the maximum is 30.
on those. Yeah, I'm sorry for that.
Okay, I just wanted to verify, especially if this is.
Thank you for pointing that out. Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. The grant program then will be derived from funds from the City of Iowa City Economic Development Opportunity Fund line. We have, like last time, we will be able to make available $150,000. We are looking at a 50% match. Gosh, I'm sorry about the typing here. That slide says 40%. It is also 50% to keep it simple. A 50% match up to $50,000. And the minimum project cost in this instance is $50,000 as well. This program will be a competitive program, and we'll have a deadline out in February so that applicants will have time to organize a project, put their drawings together, and then submit them by a deadline. Then the committee, comprised of city staff, and the committee has not been determined yet, will evaluate those applications based on the strength of those applications, the impact that the projects would make on the downtown, et cetera, and make an award to those projects. We're looking at the grant program as being one that would help fund some of the larger projects where there are renovations needed downtown, and we'll be heavily marketing this program to all the businesses and all the property owners in the downtown area, with hopes that we get some of the interest that I think is out there for that program. Both programs will be available for properties within the Iowa City Downtown District, which I've shown here, which includes not only the Central Business District, as you know, but the North Side Marketplace area as well. And finally, I wanted to show you and remind you some of the projects that came through in our last round of building change. The first is the former Whitey's building, which is now where the Moss plant shop is. You see that here. This was actually one of the last building change loan recipients. And that building underwent a lot of renovation, but the loan from the city helped with one particular part of that. And I believe in this case it was fire suppression. Is that right, Tracy? Do you remember that one?
Sure.
Moving on, the Bo James building was another. You can see the 1950s or 60s era facade was removed, and a brick facade that fits in with more contextually downtown was replaced there. Pancheros changed into a more interesting storefront as well. The Atlas restaurant changed from a blue storefront with very few window openings to the white one that you see there with several window openings. And now that it's St. Birch Tavern, they've made a couple of more changes to the front where they've added a doorway that helps them service the patio clients on the Iowa Avenue side. And the last one I was going to show you was the Cold Stone building, which has now changed to the Ray Gun building. The chief difference being there, the cornice above and cleanup and tuck pointing of the brickwork around. So these are, as you know, key properties in downtown Iowa City, and we're hoping that we get some similar strong projects in this round of building change loans and grants. But today you have before you the agreement with the 3 banks for the loan part of the building change program. Would you have any other questions?
I think I heard Mazza here basically asking a spatial question. And you'll elaborate if you want, Maz, but what I was understanding is the basic question is how come this money is only being spent in the downtown and North Marketplace neighborhood and not in other parts of the city? So what's your answer to that?
I think the answer to that would be this is just one of the programs available in the city, and one that dovetails beautifully with some of the programs that the Iowa City Downtown District is doing with their funding that they already have. In fact, they're going to be running 2 concurrent smaller loan programs with these as well, and there will be a workshop in late January to go over all of those different programs. But there are other opportunities for businesses throughout the community. The main one right now, which is the microloan program, and that allows for not only building improvements, but other business needs to be satisfied with a microloan up to $10,000 at 5% interest for up to 7 years and $10,000. That is available to people who are income qualified for that. I think you need to be at or below 80% of median income and have a business to qualify for that microloan. That is a program that is also funded by our friendly lending institutions, but we do guarantee those loan funds. So
Can I add to that, just to jump on? We have done targeted facade investments in other parts of the community too. They generally result from plans or initiatives that are larger than just a facade program. So, for example, Towncrest. We've done several loan programs in Towncrest. Those came, facade grants in Town Crest that came after that plan was adopted. We have also done at least 2 that I can think of in the Riverfront Crossings District after that master plan was adopted. I'm thinking of a little bit of assistance that went to Little Village, and then Big Grove Brewery received some assistance from the city. And then finally, I'd say we've addressed some of the other commercial areas through TIF, so the Iowa City Marketplace, and a lot of the improvements that you've seen out there to their facade were required as part of the TIF assistance that we gave them. And then several years ago, similar improvements at the Pepperwood Plaza were funded through a TIF agreement. So again, they tend to be the result of a planning effort, and then the building stock is identified as something that needs improvement, and we try to craft plans and funding sources to address those issues.
I really would be interested in if I can meet, or I don't know, however you want it, or email it, to know all the programs for economic development and where we apply them, and also for the microloan. I would really be interesting to see how many people get the microloan in the past 2 years at least.
Good. We'd be happy to provide
Yeah. Thank you.
I think it's, this is a great opportunity for people downtown and the Northside Marketplace. I am totally on board with, with this project on some level. I think I, like Maz, would like to know all of the programs. The microloan is up to $10,000 loan. It's targeted for low to moderate income individuals. And it is 3%, and it's a 5-year term, according to a staff email. But the one thing, when we're talking about low and moderate income persons, the one thing that's missing from this is any type of a grant program. So often what we do, I think in general, for low-income people, typically we want to, do a repayment with very little grant. There's very few programs designed to, potentially to really get people ahead. And so I would like to just navigate a little bit at some point, I don't know when it's appropriate, about some of the programs that we do for low-income individuals as business owners here that we're relating to. I know that there are people throughout our community that will love this opportunity, for a grant, right now the grant for I think the grant portion is up to $50,000. That they can be given. So when I look at, different parts of our city, you look over where Paul's is, and that, like between Paul's and Hudson's, there's a, probably an area that needs developed across the street, where Slager Appliances and some more places are over there.
We are, excuse me for interrupting, but we are looking into into putting together tax abatement areas for the other commercial areas, just like the ones you're describing along Highway 1 West and all along Highway 6 there, and other commercial nodes, and the other commercial nodes in town too. So while that is still in a sort of research and development stage, we look at that as something that we might be able to present to you in the coming months.
Great, thank you.
Wendy, I want to make sure I'm clear about one thing. The loan and grant programs you've described for us involve physical investment in physical structures, right? Improving the facades, improving whatever of the buildings themselves,
right? Not
of sort of supporting the businesses as such as businesses, but instead the buildings in which businesses are located, right? And that's a crucial thing, it seems to me.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. One of the most important aspects of the downtown and the North Side area is that business stock, and if those buildings are healthy and look good and fit in contextually, then business is a lot more likely to thrive in those as well.
And I totally understand that, but I think to Maz's point, if I'm a business right outside that boundary, I'm not eligible to apply for the program. Is that correct?
Correct. Those areas fairly well follow commercial districts, however. So outside those, you may find more residential and the concentration of commercial within those boundaries. They're fairly studied boundaries.
I really am not against like providing all this help to business in downtown. Downtown is great. I love it. My kids love it. We need to do that. But by the way, people start telling us we have too much attention to downtown. I hear this from a lot of people, even though I love. But right now, when I look at all these things, I kind of like start thinking about it. You know, we want to keep giving downtown, but let us do the same thing somewhere else so we can rise together.
So
I think
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm glad that Jeff mentioned some of the things that he mentioned, because most of those have happened, I think, in the last few years I've been on council, in the last 9 years, but it's easy to forget those. And I think people who don't live in those areas don't necessarily know about them. The city has put a lot of money into the Town Crest area, a lot of planning, a lot of money, and I'm really pleased to hear that the city staff is looking into the tax abatement possibility for some of these other commercial areas where it's like a grant in a way, but they're getting it over years. I mean, they're going to have to put the money in, but then they're not going to have to pay the taxes or a certain percentage of the taxes or whatever, depending on how it's structured. So I think we've been doing a lot of those other things in other areas. I mean, you know, we've, like Jeff said, we've given the old Sycamore Mall, now Iowa City Marketplace, 2 different TIFs. We've done Pepperwood. We've done a lot at Town Crest. And so, yeah, we focus a lot on downtown, but downtown is where an awful lot of that economics goes, and it also is incredibly important to the vitality of the university and their ability to recruit both staff, professors, and students. And so I totally agree. We have to take care of the whole city, but I think it's really easy for people to overlook what we're doing in areas outside of downtown.
So we just did the historic preservation study that we just received. And so some of those potential properties that might apply for this loan, they could get the funds and they can do a facade that potentially we wouldn't want done, I guess, according to the study, because we haven't done that now. Can you speak to that?
Sure. There will be a design review process for every single project that happens. So there will be people from NDS, there will be people from, or a person from our historic preservation staff, city management, and others, actually, who will ensure that the design intent is what it should be.
Yeah, I really see this as, I don't go into this saying, let's try not to make a mistake, because we know that that's going to be heavily scrutinized with this grant program if you give us the green light. I see it as an opportunity. You know, that plan that was presented to you called for incentives for investment. And if we can execute this right and we get the right applicants, these can be some of the incentives that help preserve those buildings in the right way. So it has not been the primary focus in our past rounds when we were doing this 4 or 5 years ago. But this round it will be, because that study is front and center now.
Okay. I think the 2% is phenomenal, that the banks would be willing to work with the city. And I think when I think of like the downtown building owners, I'm not totally sure that they all need a grant, especially when I look at some of the past recipients. I don't know their, financials, but that is something that I think when we're talking about grants, I think we have to be a little careful as to how the city distributes grants to those that potentially may not need it. Of course, we have big developers that get TIF money, and I get that, to ensure that we're getting stuff within our community that we really want. But again, I want to look at, maybe some more the big picture, so that I can understand the big picture of what we're doing for the greater community. I totally support businesses, and definitely the downtown district, because it is the hub of our great city.
It's important to keep in mind that the property ownership is usually different than the business ownership, and the business is usually the one who has come forward to us and applied for either grant funds or loan funds. The business generally has fewer resources to work with than the landlord, who may be sitting back and just not have any motivation to invest any more money, but with a willing and eager business tenant might think twice about that. So it's that business moving that forward.
So you're going to provide us with an update on the grant programs and loan programs that are available throughout the city, right? Great.
Yes.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks.
Anyone else want to address this topic? I guess the answer is no. Council discussion?
I guess I just want to be clear, because by the time we get the memo out, this program will be out the door. So are you comfortable with us proceeding with the program prior to discussing the forthcoming memo?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. We voted. We agree. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. Any further council discussion about this particular item?
I do have concerns about the boundary. I don't think we should limit it just to the downtown. I think it should be for throughout the city. Certainly downtown businesses would be eligible to participate, but I see no reason why we should allocate these funds in a limited area. We've done past economic development efforts in other parts of the community. I understand that. But I would be willing to. So I'm actually not going to support it until we have a new proposal that does not have the boundary, and any eligible business would be able to apply for this particular program.
Okay.
Which one they talking about now?
Yeah.
The grant or the loan that we just
We're only
voted for?
talking about the loan.
Only talking about the loan.
Yes.
And I think what we would have to check, and I don't know if Tracy or Wendy, you know this, but the banks may be participating through the Community Reinvestment Act, which is a federal law that requires investments in qualified targeted areas. I'm not sure. We'd have to talk with them to see if they could expand their boundaries, because sometimes the Community Reinvestment Act limits where they can do some of these low-interest loans or below-market loans. So,
If we didn't have programs and hadn't had programs and aren't looking at more programs around the community, I would agree with you, Rockne, but I think when you really look at $150,000, that's not a lot of money. And so I think to use that in a concentrated area, you get kind of more bang for your buck. You get the synergy of more buildings in a concentrated area that really are attractive to people and helpful in terms of the way the businesses work and marketing. So again, if we hadn't been and weren't going to be doing more in those other areas, I would totally agree with you. But in this case, I'm comfortable limiting this to the downtown and North Market time.
I agree with Susan, too, because especially since it was brought up about how we just recently heard about the historic downtown survey. There are a lot of buildings down there that could benefit from this, and that's what we'd like to see.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
My question was like how long this program was, and the city manager just told me 3 years, and 3 years being given to the downtown. I wish if we can expand it this year, because 3 years we are doing it in the same place constantly.
But it's only $150.
It's
$150,000.
still.
It's gonna be
Did we
gone.
give 150 in another place? We can go and do it like another business place where I support Rockne idea that to expand it. Because we have it for 3 years. I thought this is the first time. Maybe we can give it to the downtown. That's fine. But this is for 3 years now.
$150,000. If it's $10,000 minimum, I mean that could be 15.
Could be gone in 6 months.
Well, I mean, but it could be 15 individuals
15 is a lot.
that would get the loan. And I'm not exactly sure about the grant. I don't know if that's minimum 50,000 for the grant. The project cost is minimum 50,000 for the grant, and how much would be allocated minimum?
25%. It's a 50% match.
50% match.
I want to say I think this program is important for the downtown, and the downtown is important for the city for reasons that we all know. So I'm not telling anybody anything new here, but it seems to me that it is important to get this program reinstalled. I think that'd be a good verb. But I do want to see this report about other economic development programs, et cetera, that are available for other parts of the city. And we need to know that. We need to have that information in order to make other judgments in the future. But for right now, I strongly support this particular program as it's presented to us.
Do you mean you're willing to work in another grant for another part of the town?
I need to know what other programs are.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have something like this, I guess, so we can go for this right now. I can go with this for you if you are willing.
I'd be fully prepared to talk about that, absolutely. But, talk about it because we'd have to, this is a spatial program. It's focused on one particular area. If we want to do spatially oriented programs in other part of the city, okay, well, let's talk through that and figure out which areas those would be. Or it has nothing to do with space, it just has to do with buildings, older buildings and facade improvements on older buildings. But that's not what we're presented with tonight, so.
And Mayor, I think you said it, like, we don't know all the other programs, and that's why it's a little difficult, maybe to make a decision to fully support this. Of course, I think oftentimes I have to just look at what's being presented, what it's being presented for, and make a decision on that. But, will this take away from other projects throughout the city? I don't know that.
You don't know, actually.
No, I don't believe it'll take away from other parts.
It's not city money.
Well, I'm referring to the programs that are already designed for other businesses outside of the downtown and north side marketplace.
I don't see how this would affect any of those because this isn't city money. This is loan money coming from the banks. We're simply acting as an administrator of that loan money. So the people wanting it don't have to go to 3 different institutions or ask for more money from one institution at a higher interest rate. And the fact that the city's having to collect the monthly payments saves the banks a lot of paperwork. I mean, it's, as Wendy said, it's running through our software system. We collect it, we send them the check once a year. I don't have a problem. The other thing is, I'm not sure, the way I'm reading this agreement, they are each of the, I guess the banks are the recipients in this. They're providing up to $50,000 between November 1st of 2018 and June 30th of 2020. So it's going to go out basically a year and a half, if I'm reading that right, not 3 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if we've gone through the $150,000 sooner than that. I mean, it'll just depend upon what businesses and property owners come forward and apply. But that's not.
So with regard to Maz's, Bruce's, and Rockney's points, I think I hear clearly that a significant number of our council members are curious about whether a comparable program could be created for other parts of the city. Maybe that's possible. We haven't done any staff work on that as far as I know. So, but I hear that, and I imagine Jeff and the rest of staff hears that too, and we'll be thinking about what might be possible, what might not be possible, what areas might be applicable, which ones might not. I mean, that kind of thing.
Well, I think Wendy's comments about they're talking about or thinking about tax abatement is right in line with that.
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
No.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
No.
Motion carries 5-2. Moving on, item 12, council appointments. Applicants must reside in Iowa City and be 18 years of age unless specific qualifications are stated. Item 12A, Airport Zoning Commission. We have one vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment. Why did I read that first thing? Upon appointment. There's a female gender balance. We have one application from a female, Christine Ogren, who used to serve on the Airport Commission. Is there any objection to appointing Chris Ogren to that?
No.
No.
Okay, so could I have a motion to approve Chris Ogren for the Airport Zoning Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Cole, seconded by Soleil. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 13, announcement of vacancies. Previous. We have one vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment to the Board of Adjustment. Applications for that position must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, January the 15th, 2019. We also have 2 vacancies to fill 5-year terms on the Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment. 1 vacancy to fill a 5-year term on the Board of Appeals, HVAC, or Building Professional. 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission for the East College Street District. 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission, Jefferson Street District. And 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term on the Telecommunications Commission. Vacancies will remain open until filled. Item 13A, this is a late addition. We have another announcement of vacancies. This is a new position. We have 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment to the Civil Service Commission. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, January the 29th, 2019. Item 14, community comment. Item 15, city council information. So let's see, what was I going to do here? What was I going to do? I had an idea in mind. I want to start with John and move to the right.
I just wanted to report, I don't know how many of you have taken the 380 Express to Cedar Rapids from Iowa City.
Yeah.
But I just did with friend Nancy, and I had a wonderful time. It's highly recommend taking the trip on the bus. It's especially for seniors. I think it's $1.75 each way, so you just cannot beat the price. But
and it departs every half hour?
I think at commute times it does, and then maybe every hour at off commute times. You can pick it up downtown, and then you end up basically downtown in Cedar Rapids. There are stops at Kirkwood and in Coralville as well, but it's about a 45-minute trip. Mm-hmm. But it sort of drops you off. We ended up spending most of our time in Nubo, and just having one conversation after another, which was what I hadn't anticipated, and I don't know if it was just unique to us or not, but traveling by bus sort of put us in a different frame of mind. It was as if we were on a longer trip somewhere. So when you got off the bus, there was just the sense of you were in a different place altogether. And
be in the commercial, John.
Yeah, well, and so I don't know. Maybe we're just resonating these vibes that we're very open and receptive to whatever we encountered, but had just one conversation after another with people we encountered. And I don't know how many of you have been to the Cherry Building, but that's a fascinating place. CSPS, they were in the midst of a show preparation, and so they were kind of in process and very open. But again, I just, if you've given it any thought, I would urge you to follow up on it. And it is something that's, up to this point, from what I gather, kind of been lacking in this region. The ability to take transit over a longer distance. It's pretty much a city-oriented transit service, and many metro areas do have that opportunity. So I'd encourage you to take advantage of it.
Nothing.
I think quite a few of us attended the ICAD luncheon last week, and that was a nice event. Good to see so many folks there and reiterate all the great things that have been happening over the Iowa City area over the past year. So that was good. And John, I appreciate your comments about the 380 Express, because I know being on the ECICOG, they're concerned about that. Last I'd heard, they were averaging about 100 riders per day, which they thought was good. They'd like to see it a lot better. So I hope your little ad can help boost that ridership there. Otherwise, nothing else.
I was at Think Iowa, and that was great to see some of our individuals that we recognize for the, what is the name of the award?
Bravo.
Bravo Award. That was a good thing to witness. I had my first KXIC opportunity, and so that was a great opportunity just to experience. I also had the opportunity to join the mayor at the University of Iowa Faculty Senate government, and I thought that was a great opportunity for the city to engage with the university. A little bit about some of their concerns, and they had a lot of questions about what the city is doing. So that was a great interaction there. I went to Iowa City Hospice. They had an open house, and that was on the 13th of December, and that was fascinating just to see the changes that's happened there. I used to work for Iowa City Hospice, and so yes, it's great, and I know that the city, I believe, has helped with some projects with their building at some point. Two other things. On Saturday, I got to attend the University of Iowa graduation, which was held at Carver Hawkeye Arena, and there was a 68-year-old Bernadine Franks that got her bachelor's degree, and so it was just great to witness and such an inspiration to a lot of people in the community. She's African American, and so for me that meant that was very special to be a part of that celebration day. Saturday night, I went to the choir. They had a Beautiful Things concert. It was at Zion Lutheran Church, and the choir is LGBTQ. Choir that sings, and I actually think that is like the eastern part of Iowa, because people are here from Cedar Rapids and not just Iowa City area. So that was awesome to witness, and that's all I have.
I also went to the event. It was a nice event, and I went to on Wednesday. Last Wednesday, I had a tour at the shelter house. It was amazing. Always I look at the shelter house from outside and I feel like this is really a small place. And when I went upstairs, it was like really amazing. They can fit there like 70 people. And it was clean and nice. I really, I was really amazing by that. And from here, I just want to thank the people who are behind the scene, like working hard to make the shelter house like a better place for everyone. And that was really amazing experience for me. That's it.
Good. To follow up with what Maz had said, just briefly want to thank everyone on this bench issue that we've been talking about. It's a very difficult issue, and I think we all really care about some of our most vulnerable residents in the community. And it really struck me with Chrissy's comments about the better angels of our nature. Certainly as public officials, we welcome and encourage criticism. That's an important part of public debate, and we hope we'll continue to have that good constructive feedback. But by the same token, I really want to recognize the work that our staff, our nonprofits have done, in particular you've done, Susan, just the tremendous groundwork that we've done. And I want the community to continue to push us and work hard to make sure that we're doing everything we can. But by the same token, I do hope we heed her call to sort of heed our better angels, try to stay positive, try to stay solution-oriented, and really work together. So I hope we'll continue to follow up on that as an issue. The other thing I want to do is I want to call out our sister city, Coralville. A couple weeks ago, we went to the Beauty and the Beast at the Center for the Arts in Coralville. And if you have never been to a show there, it's fantastic. Coralville, we love you. It's great to have such a great sister city here in our region. And we hope that you'll come to Englert and Riverside Theater and our great, fantastic attractions, including Les Mis that I went to last week at Hampshire, which is really fabulous. I think we're really blessed that we live in such a tremendous area as far as that goes. So finally, there's about 20 minutes left till the polls end, and we're not going to comment on who we support in terms of candidates, but I just want to commend both Roy Sand and Phil Hemingway for running a very positive, clean campaign. I think, again, heeding to our better angels and let the best person win based upon whoever the voters decide. So if you haven't voted yet, there's 20 minutes left. Get those votes in. So good luck to whomever is successful in that regard. That's all I have, and hope everyone has a great holiday.
All right, good deal. Well, I did a bunch of stuff. I won't mention any of it, so we can move on to our work session. Jeff?
Okay.
Nothing.
Ashley?
I was just going to mention that you will see the budget come out on Friday for public and council review. And on Saturday, January the 5th, we're having the Breakfast on a Budget repeat event from last year. So people are welcome to come for a light breakfast to chat with staff and council members and stay for the educational program.
Very good. That was one of Kingsley's best ideas, for sure. Eleanor. Kelly?
People come.
All right. Could I think, well, go
Can I
ahead.
just make one?
Sure.
Ashley, will we have some publicity on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's forthcoming, but I figured I'd plug it now.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I think that's it. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Slay, seconded by Thomas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned.